皆さんこんにちは。世界の英語教育を紹介するシリーズ、今回で4回目になります。今まではアジアやアフリカの国々の英語教育事情を紹介してきたんですけれども、今回は初めて南米の国を紹介します。その国とはブラジルです。そして今回の対談相手は DMM 英会話のパブロ先生です。学校でいつ頃から、そしてどうやって英語を学んだんですかとか、自分の時間でどのように英語を勉強しましたかとか、ブラジルといえば南米で GDP と人口がナンバーワンなので、将来に対して楽観的ですかなどと聞いてみました。で、残念ながらちょっと音声のクオリティがあんまり良くないんですが、イヤホンで聞くと、ちょっと聞き取りやすくなります。いずれにせよ字幕もね入れてますので、そちらを頼りにしながら見ていただければ大丈夫かなと思います。それでは対談スタートです。So, first of all, Pablo, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Right, so my name is Pablo. I'm 25 years old. I'm from Brazil. I live next to Sao Paulo City in a city named São Bernardo do Campo, quite long name. I've been working as an English tutor for 2 years now, maybe. So before working on DMM, I already was an English tutor, and my hobbies are learning other languages as well, when I have some time, and also watching TV shows and movies on streaming services, working out my body, traveling to unique, different places, listening to good songs and hits. My favorite genres are bossa nova, which is traditionally Brazilian, and pop music. Not to mention, I also like to read the news and get myself posted on what's going on.
Cool, thank you very much. So, I did a bit of research on Brazil, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the official language is Portuguese.
Yeah, that's right.
And are there any other like regional languages that are used by other people, like maybe as even their native tongue?
Only official language recognized by the government is Portuguese.
Right.
But we got some indigenous communities who speak their local languages, but their local languages are kind of disappearing.
Mm.
So we don't really hear so much about it. And their local languages used to be more common in the last few centuries, but now they're kind of fading.
Okay. So if I were to just talk to a random person in your city, what are the chances that they'll be able to understand English?
Pretty low, to be honest, unfortunately.
Okay.
Maybe in Sao Paulo nowadays, it's a little bit more common for people to express themselves in English because the number of people with an intermediate level is increasing.
Mm.
So people are quite excited about welcoming gringos and foreigners when they're just coming here for sightseeing.
Mm.
But still, when you go to a grocery store, drugstore, or any normal facility where people need to go for usual reasons, you can't really speak English, so they're not really good at speaking yet.
Mm.
But I guess it's slightly improving. I guess things are slightly getting better,
Mm.
and people are still finding a way to express themselves in English, considering the number of foreigners is increasing here for
Okay.
tourism.
Right. So, did you first start learning English in elementary school?
I should say so, yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't really become fluent in English when I was in elementary school.
Mm.
So I fell in love with English when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
But at school, I used to study at a private school
Okay.
for free, so it's a long story. And they used to teach basic English like grammar, vocabulary,
Mm.
reading. And people would try to speak English at the classroom, but it was nothing so deep and nothing so elaborate.
Mm.
But most of what I learned, and I officially learned English on my own. So I didn't really rely on my school's curriculum to know what I know nowadays.
Okay. So in Japan, recently they've started teaching English as like an official subject at elementary school, I think from grade 3. So do you remember when you started learning English? Like what grade was it?
When I started like the very basic English, maybe 8 or 9.
Okay, 8 or 9. So that's probably, yeah, around grade 3. And so,
Like,
yeah, so you mentioned that you learned grammar, which is very interesting because I think in most Japanese elementary schools, they don't really teach grammar first. They just kind of make the lessons as conversational as possible so that the students become interested in using the language. And they start learning grammar usually from junior high school. So when they're like, what, 12 or 13 years old. So did you learn grammar at an earlier age than that?
um, actually, grammar. Yeah, I started learning grammar when I was around maybe 10 or 11, as far as I remember.
Mm.
But learning English was not meant to be something that made you want to speak English, actually. It was just to complete the skills curriculum, just like math,
Mm.
geography, history, and so on.
That's actually, I think that's very similar to the situation in Japan. Most students, they have to learn English, not to become, good at having conversations in the language, using the language, but to, yeah, as you said, pass exams, difficult exams. Okay, so is English taught in Portuguese?
Yes,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay.
We, we didn't really have any foreign tutors, any native speakers teaching us. We just had Brazilian speakers teaching us, and everything was translated, or most things were translated. So translation was a big technique for teaching, even though translation is not an effective way to teach and learn.
Right.
But I forgot to mention that I used to study at a private school.
Okay.
At public schools, things were way worse. I mean,
Oh,
things are way worse
really?
because, as far as I know, according to what people tell me,
Mm.
they just learn the beaver. They just learn very basic grammar
Yeah.
and nothing beyond that.
Okay. So you said earlier that you learn English pretty much on your own. So what kind of things did you do specifically?
Well, as I turned 12 years old, I realized that learning English wasn't the hardest nut to crack. And from that time on, I started looking up some words in my Portuguese English dictionary.
Yeah.
As I said, translation was a big method for teaching, unfortunately. And I started looking up these words and I realized that, okay, learning English can be fun. Over my teenage years, it took quite a long time. I'm 25 now, so it's been 13 years now. I would watch some videos on YouTube. I would watch some vlogs on YouTube, video lessons on YouTube too.
Yeah.
I would also try to watch series and cartoons on streaming services, not to mention reading some articles on news news outlets. And every now and then I would also practice some grammar because I really like grammar. So grammar is not something I dislike or hate like most people do.
Okay.
And one thing I forgot to mention is that I would also try to speak English on my own with myself in front of the mirror,
Okay.
or use my stopwatch to see how long I could go
Yeah.
speaking on my own. And then I didn't mention it as well, but I graduated in translation at university.
Wow.
So when I entered university, I would also practice my speaking skills at the classroom
Yeah.
with my fellows.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So that was interesting to hear because I also encourage my students to speak on their own, like speak to themselves, because it's free. You can do it as much as you want. You can do it almost anywhere, so long as it's not out in public. And yeah, I think the only way to get better at speaking English is just to practice. And yeah, you can't. There probably isn't enough time to do that at schools. And also, um, you know, it's probably going to be difficult to always find like someone to talk to in order to practice your English. And it might be expensive as well if you have to pay for lessons. So I really do think that speaking to yourself is like one of the most efficient ways to learn English. And yeah, so it's good to hear that that's one of the methods that you use.
Not to mention, no one's judging you, right? No one's
Yeah.
watching you.
Mm.
No one's there to point out your mistakes or what you're doing wrong. It's you that will criticize you and point out what you can improve or what you should improve. So that builds your confidence, and that really makes you feel better about yourself.
Definitely.
So that's all.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think a lot of students are scared of the criticism. So that's why, they don't feel very confident speaking in front of people. Okay. So is it really, like I said, is it advantageous to be able to speak English when looking for a job, looking for a good job in Brazil?
Definitely.
Oh, it is.
Considering there's around 5% of the population can speak English at an intermediate, reasonable level,
Oh, is that right?
and just 1%
Yeah.
can definitely speak English fluently.
Okay.
At least according to British Council, right? But maybe nowadays data is a little bit better, but I'm not sure. The point is, the fact is that there's a single minority of people can speak English fluently in my country.
Okay. So I know that Brazil has like a really big population, and I think it's still growing as well. So what is the overall atmosphere like in Brazil? Like, are most people kind of optimistic about Brazil's future, or are they worried about something? What's it like?
Optimistic, I would say no.
Oh, really?
We're going through some political issues. The country is quite polarized politically, and we got a lot of inflation rate problems, some economic problems as well. So overall, I guess people don't really have a good perspective on the future. But a lot of people decide to stay here and fight for their nation. But I would say this is a similar perspective to what people feel in their own homelands in other countries in Latin America. Because we Latinos, we always find problems about our countries. Our countries are pretty unequal, poor, inefficient in a lot of matters. And I guess it's hard for us to have a good perspective on the future, but it doesn't mean that we can't stop fighting.
Definitely. I'm sure you've taught some Japanese students before. What's like a general piece of advice that you could give to your Japanese learners to improve their English?
Go easy on yourself. I can see that Japanese people are pretty hardworking, dedicated, industrious, and they care about every single mistake they make. Every single grammar mistake they make, they just feel so confused and so, let's say, lost in what they say. So go easy on yourself. Just care about what you gotta say or what ideas you want to convey. Okay, you don't really need to be so complex. You don't really need to say complex, complicated, advanced words all the time. You just gotta make yourself understood and have a full, natural conversation. Because that's the main point.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I've actually been talking to quite a few other teachers as well. And yeah, a lot of them do say that, it's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. The only way you can improve is just to practice, practice, practice. So thank you for your words of encouragement. All right. Well, Pablo, thank you for your time. I learned lots of new stuff, and hopefully my viewers will also be able to learn lots of new things. So thank you so much, and I hope that someday I can talk to you again.
Yeah,
All
thanks
right.
for inviting me.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See
See you
you.
later. はい、いかがだったでしょうか。正直ですね、私にとって結構新しい発見がいくつかあって、意外とその英語を流暢に喋れる人って少ないんだなっていう印象を受けましたね。1% ぐらいって言ってましたから、日本とあんまり変わらないのかもしれません。で、何より印象に残ったのが独り言のメリットですね。自分が話したように、やっぱ独り言って一人でできるし、いつでもできるし、無料でできるみたいなことを話したと思うんですけど、パブロ先生が言ってたように、確かに誰にも批判されないので、自由にね、気楽にすることができるんじゃないかなって思いました。私もね、独り言をたくさんしますし、その分上手くなってるっていう実感はありますので、よかったら皆さんもね、試してみてください。はい、ということで、アジア、アフリカ、南米ってきましたので、そろそろね、ヨーロッパの人と対談をしようと思ってますので、ぜひぜひ楽しみにしていてください。それでは、Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next lesson.